Fellas, as a man, one of your top priorities is to safeguard and optimize your testosterone levels, right? And I say testosterone levels because there's two different facets to this. You have total testosterone, and then you have free testosterone. Now, the difference maker is something called sex hormone binding globulin, right? And as your sex hormone binding globulin increases, that causes a binding up of your free testosterone, driving down free testosterone, which is deeply problematic because having low free testosterone can cause you to physically present as a person with just general low testosterone, right? So we want adequate total and free testosterone, right? At the core of this issue and why this is so important is because you need these levels to be optimized in order to maximize muscle growth, fat metabolism, sex drive, the ability to produce a child, right? Get your missus pregnant if you want to have a child, be successful in business, be successful socially, mentally, emotionally, and just overall longevity, cardiovascular health, metabolic health, blood sugar control, kidney health, all this type of stuff, right, largely depends on testosterone balance, right, being optimized as much as you can. In order to do that, there's one thing that sits in the middle. If you optimize on this one thing, you really focus on improving this one thing, that can fix everything else and have a cascading level of results that are significantly life-changing. And that one thing is going to be stress management. So there's three key things that I want to focus on in areas where you can improve on that stress management. Now let's start with sleep quality, right? For the men that I work with, the leading issue is poor sleep quality or just straight up sleep deprivation. Right? As you get deeper and deeper into worsening sleep quality or sleep deprivation, your testosterone levels start to drop, especially free testosterone. And that sex hormone binding globulin increases along with a variety of other different inflammatory markers, right? So what we want to do is we want to focus on improving sleep quality and sleep duration. And this is largely going to be like a scheduling and environment issue. The scheduling issue is often the best thing to improve on. There's a very big difference between going to bed in between 8 and 9 o'clock and waking up between 4 and 5 o'clock. There's a very big difference between that and going to bed like between 1 and 2 a.m. in the morning and waking up at like 10 or 11 in the morning. Very big difference between these two things. Even if you get the same amount of sleep between both, you can still have significantly better sleep quality getting to bed earlier and waking up earlier. You get more sun exposure, you're more in alignment with the circadian rhythm, your day and night cycle, and thus you get better results from doing that. The most successful people, the people who achieve the best results the fastest, are the ones who get to bed earlier and wake up earlier, right? You have to understand that we, as human beings, do not operate independently of the environment we live in. We have to abide by, and we are tethered to, the day and night cycle. So when we fall out of alignment with that, we get slapped on the wrist for it, basically. So there's that, really optimizing your sleep schedule. Right? So this is just planning in general, all right? The second thing is environment. You don't want to try to get to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, but you're exposed to a lot of noise, sound, a lot of stimulation, exciting movies, TV shows, arguments, dramatic phone calls, whatever the case may be. You want to bring down the temperature and the stimulation before you go to bed. You want to prime yourself to go to sleep. So if you're trying to get to bed at 8 o'clock, you got to start dialing things down around 6:30, 7 o'clock so that you can gradually slide in to an earlier bedtime. So this includes things like turning down sound, maybe improving, turning on some jazz or some meditation music, right? Dimming the lights, having more of like a soft yellow or orange lighting, not orange necessarily, but think of like a warm color, like that of like a setting sun, right? That's what I mean by like yellow and orange, right? So just bringing down the temperature, all right, in order to chill out. And that makes a world of a difference with sleep quality and getting to bed on time and waking up feeling just ready to go and firing on all cylinders. The second thing is going to be your overall training and exercise routine. Either the first or second most common mistake I see men make when dealing with low testosterone or just inadequate testosterone is you're just doing too much cardio, too much weightlifting, or just resistance training in general, just way too much, right? Training 5, 6, and even 7 days a week. Now, some people can get away with doing that, but most people can't, especially if you're one of these people who already are carrying a lot of excess body fat, low level of, let's say, muscle mass on your body, and low levels of both total and free testosterone. Okay? If you're struggling with weight loss, if you're struggling with muscle building, if you're struggling with libido, low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, frequent fatigue, these types of issues, you need to really optimize recovery. And the only way to really optimize recovery is you got to cut back on all the exercise. That's a big ant. Exercise is a stressor. Cardio is a stressor. All of it, right? Paying bills is a stressor. Going to work. Really putting a maximal amount of effort in order to bring home as much money as possible from your occupation. Raising kids, even being in a marriage, just dealing with people in general. All these things are stressors, even the foods that you eat, right? You're slipping up on your diet, that's a stressor, right? Consuming way too much fat, way too much protein, that's a stressor, right? Environmental contaminations, all this type of stuff. Heavy metals in your foods or whatever the case is, that's a stressor. So your body's contending with all these things, which is what's contributing to your health struggles. You don't want your exercise routine to really exacerbate that and make the issue way worse, right? You don't want that. So when you exercise, one of the most important things is to do just enough, right? What is the least amount of effort and work I can put in order to consistently guarantee results and consistent progress on the journey? I don't want to do as much exercise as possible. I want to do the least amount as possible while still being successful, right? So dosing is very important. There's acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is a small dosage of stress. It can be a small dosage, but a very powerful one, meaning that that stress can be very high, but in a very short period of time. So it's easier to recover from. When you recover from that stress, the next thing that happens is overcompensation, which is a thing that your body engages in order for you to come back better and stronger than you were previously, to be more resilient and resistant to stress than you were previously. That's the point of the training in the first place. If you're training really frequently and constantly, this prevents you from overcompensation. So you can recover enough back to baseline, but not enough to fully maximize overcompensation to actually improve. Doing this over a repeated period of time just leads to stagnation, plateauing, and frustration. Okay, and it can even lead to a decline because it gets in your head, you start slacking, and things fall off the rails. So when it comes to resistance training, the main thing that you want to do if your goal is to build muscle is you want to optimize for intensity. Intensity is the most important thing. How much effort are you putting in? So your workouts only really need to be anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes at a time, with a total training duration of around 60 minutes to a maximum of 90 minutes per week. okay? More advanced people need somewhere along the lines of 90 minutes per week, whereas like somebody who's a newbie, who is very far away from their genetic potential, you'd do fine with 60 minutes a week, all right? For fat metabolism, this is largely going to be based on your diet, blood sugar control, and just overall recovery and stress management. The ideal form of cardio for fat metabolism to drop body fat is just simply going to be things like walking or just low intensity exercise, hiking, going on a walk, a chill bike ride, things like this. It doesn't have to be intense, right? Because cardio for weight loss doesn't require you to really optimize for endurance, maximizing endurance, cardiovascular endurance. All you need to do is just utilize cardio to drop your blood sugar enough to trigger lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat and converting it into glucose to continue to power your body and maintain your energy levels. That's it, okay? For fat metabolism, you basically want to optimize for stress management and maintaining a blood sugar that's low enough to maintain elevated fat metabolism. It's as simple as that. The third thing is going to be diet, right? Arguably, the most important is diet. Stress management, the reason why like a diet plan in particular works and why it's sustainable is because it's a hedge against acute stress. So when you engage in acute stressors, whether it be a prolonged fast or really intense training session, your diet is what allows you to really recover and go through overcompensation to improve over time. Your diet has to do two things. It has to reduce stress and mitigate stress increases. So what this looks like is you have a diet that is rich in antioxidants and energy, as well as the building blocks to build new cells, right? These things combined help you to recover from oxidative stress and prevent or reduce oxidative stress. Oxidative stress meaning damage to your cells or just breakdown and destruction of your cells, right? So this is why I'm a big fan of plant-based foods, because plant-based foods is where all the antioxidants are at, right? All the carotenoids, the polyphenols, etc. So I'm a very big proponent of, in your diet, you want to make sure that you have a colorful diet. So you want to get the full gradient of colors. So you have violet, red, orange, yellow, green. All of these colors should make up the bulk of your diet. So this is going to be fruits, leafy green vegetables, and things of this nature, right? So there's that, and then there are your foods like your carbohydrates. So your fruits, your whole grains, your legumes, and things like this. Is this where you get a lot of your energy from? So high levels of energy in your diet combined with antioxidants, right, an abundance of antioxidants, both power the muscle growth process, the fat reduction process, and the prevention or reduction of oxidative stress. So those two things are very important. And of course, adequate hydration, which is why I'm a big fan of something like a fruitarian diet or a fruit dominant diet, so that you can have a hydrating diet. Because if you have foods that are very dry foods, especially foods that are dry and processed, this is dehydrating over time, which is a stressor on your body, right? So that's a very important thing to consider in your diet. As far as fat and protein, you just need enough fat, not too much, just enough to provide your body with the necessary omega-3, omega-6, EPA, DHA, and just enough fats in order to maximize your vitamin A, E, D, and K absorption in order to utilize those resources to build new cells, hormones, and things of this nature, right? And then protein, getting enough protein in order to provide your body with the necessary amino acids to build hormones, enzymes, and new cells and things of this nature. You don't need a lot, just enough, okay? So what this looks like in the grand scheme of things is, carbohydrates would be anywhere between 4 and like 6 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of lean mass, right? You can even go upwards of 7 grams of carbohydrates per kilogram of lean mass. For fats, this will generally be somewhere in between 0.75 to like 1.2 grams of fat per kilogram of lean mass, right? And then protein would be somewhere in between 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of lean mass. I calculate all these things according to your lean mass because your diet is supposed to feed your lean mass, not your fat mass. So you would exclude your fat mass from this, okay? And you especially want to do that if you're trying to maximize for fat metabolism as well. Because if you're just providing enough energy to feed your lean mass, this will force your body to oxidize and decrease fat mass in order to break that down and convert it into usable energy to continue to power your body. All right? So that's why. If you don't know what your lean mass is, well, another way to do this is you get your general body fat percentage and then you base your macros on that. Or you could just look at your total body weight, and then let's say you do, as far as calories are concerned, well, your total body weight is going to be kind of skewed. But you could start with, let's say, no more than 30 calories per kilogram of total body weight. You do that, that'll give you a rough outline of how much food in general you should be eating. Again, we're talking about maximizing testosterone levels. Okay, so we're not really so much focused on a caloric deficit, so to speak, with something like this. That's just a rough outline of where to go. And then if we're looking at macro percentages, carbohydrates would be, let's say, anywhere between 50 and 70% of your macros. All right, so those would be your ranges, and then fat would be anywhere between, let's say, 10 to 25% of your macros. And then protein can be anywhere between 10 and 20% or 10 and 16% of your macros. That's a rough general outline as far as structuring your diet plan around, right? You're gonna get more accurate if you base your food intake according to your lean mass, but if you don't know that, you can start broadly just based on your total body weight, and then you can notch things down from there. Both approaches work. But what I would say is the biggest issue with using diet for stress management is under eating is a thing you don't want to do if you're trying to maximize your testosterone, if you're trying to optimize testosterone. You don't want to under eat. I would rather you overeat than undereat if you're trying to maximize for testosterone, really. And the reason why is because we're not really focusing on weight loss, because you could be underweight with low testosterone and overweight with low testosterone, right? So just for the sake of testosterone, we want to really empower your body to bring those testosterone levels up. So I would rather you overeat and then notch down a little bit in like these 5% increments over time to really dial in the sweet spot as far as testosterone. But if you maximize or optimize for stress management, typically that's the best and most sustainable way to create a body transformation, right? So in short, calorie deficits, maximizing training volume, stressing the crap out of your body, nutrients, sleep deprivation, all of this, throw all of that out the window and just focus on stress management. Throughout the week, I do weekly one-on-one calls with people like yourself. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely go to the link in the description of this video and book a call with me. We have a full 60 minutes to really map out strategies and game plan to really focus on where your biggest errors are and what you can do moving forward in more detail to improve on your circumstances, right? So just pick your day and time, whichever one works the best for you, and we'll talk soon.